Salam Amin and welcome to Somali Dispatch. Once again, thanks for accepting our invitation. Dive into this subject here. As lots of people know by now, there are individuals from Minnesota, Minneapolis specifically, and maybe some in Columbus as well. Generally speaking, Somalis who are charged with a feeding program that they apparently or allegedly embezzled money. What could you tell us about that? And if you could start us off by giving us a bit of a background about that, would be great.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Abdul Qadir. Thank you for having me, and I'm glad to be back on the Somali Dispatch. Yes, we had the prosecutor for the federal government in the state of Minnesota, Andrew Luger, held a press conference on Tuesday, indicting total of 47 individuals initially, and then adding one more later that day, or the following day, I think. Majority of these individuals were Somali individuals who were accused of being involved, having an involvement with embezzling money from a feeding program that was intended for nutritional program for children and adults in the state of Minnesota. They were working with mainly an organization called Feeding Our Future, led by a white woman by the name of Amy Buck. So that is what happened this week, and in a way we kind of knew that it was coming. There were articles, earlier this year about possibly this coming up. Investigation was on, but we did not expect it would be this scale. 47 people in one day. With the amount of money stated, the Attorney General stated that there was over $250 million missing, and it seems to have a wide reach. Obviously, at this point, it's still an allegations. Majority of the people have been arraigned, been to court, and now are awaiting trial and process of the court to go forward.
Right. These individuals that are alleged to have embezzled the funds for Feed Our Children, obviously it was going on for a bit, but majority of it over the pandemic years or period. There are some notable Somalis that are included. They went all the way up, what I've read in reports, to the mayoral office. Is this how prevalent was this in the community? Apparently, in social media, posting their lifestyles, which they created out of the backs of this program. How was it felt in the community?
Obviously, it was a huge shock. You could feel it. It was the talk of the town. Everybody was talking about this. Obviously, people were really touched by, just how many people were kind of swept in. Obviously, everybody was very concerned for the entirety of the community, as even though I think the government's done a good job of not mentioning the Somali name generally. Then anytime something happens, we tend to have the court of public opinion prosecuting the entire community. That is seriously a concern. A lot of people were really talking to each other and asking questions whether they should be more vigilant now in the community. What could possibly happen to them? How could this be used by individuals who normally target the Somali community? And all of this, is swirling around. But at the same time, obviously, everybody is responsible for their own individual self, and right. There are laws and law enforcement in this state, and we're just kind of going through the motions and see what happens next. But obviously, this is a very concerning development in our community. This is not something that we, as a community, are happy about. Obviously, we don't want any. We don't condone this kind of activity if it's true. At the same time, we don't want this to be having a wider impact on the community for many that have nothing to do with this or are completely innocent.
Right. This is happening in an election year. And there are some that are saying this is politically motivated. Do you get that sense in the community?
The community is very active in politics. I mean, when it comes to elections, Somali community has a very high turnout. Especially earlier this year, we were noticing a lot of two major parties were really coming hard for the Somali community in terms of this, trying to get their votes because the Somalis in Minnesota, I mean, a good block of voters. So we've noticed that, but we've also noticed a lot of elected officials. Everybody's distancing themselves from this incident. And we expected that. I mean, who could possibly want it to be part of something? Allegations pretty damning. It's pretty bad. But we actually had, I think, a big Republican Party event in Minnesota last night for the Somali community, trying to woo the Somali voters. So we haven't noticed the parties staying away from the Somali community yet, but politicians are clearly using this. Some of them, especially those that see the Somali community as not maybe votes that they would receive, using that against the other parties and the Somali community and kind of, flaming fire, if you will.
Right. The Somali community in Minnesota and Minneapolis in general is blessed with professionals like yourselves that know the system, that are in the system, are well integrated into the system. However, the people that are caught up in this, the word is a lot of them are new Americans that haven't been living there for too long. What are the chances of them just getting swept up into this scheme? Are there those that were unsuspecting? Perhaps I know as a lawyer talking to you, I'm not a lawyer, but talking to a lawyer like yourselves, ignorance is not a good defense, or even past practice ain't a good defense. But is there an element where a lot of the citizens that are arraigned and alleged to have embezzled that money not know the full capacity or knowledge of what it is that they were doing?
As you mentioned, when it comes to defense, ignorance is not a defense at all. Everyone is responsible as an adult to know the law and what this program was intended for. I wouldn't say. I mean, this is a mix of people. I mean, we have people that have been in the community for a long time, prominent individuals in the community. Um, it's a mix. To this point, I mean, at this rate, it's still an allegations, and everybody is innocent until proven guilty in court of law. But at the same time, the individuals that are currently accused or indicted are not necessarily new. Many of them actually have been in the state of Minnesota, professionals, business individuals that have been really prominent in the community, owning major businesses that have been in the community for so many years. Um, and that's really what is shocking the community. Is like this is hitting really hard because it's happening to a lot of cross section of the community. But at the same time, there might be those that were kind of newer that might not understand the law. Obviously, when you have an immigrant community, you can always have individuals like that, but it's not going to be really much of a defense in terms of in court that I didn't know this was wrong, because everybody's expected to know, because the government cannot know if everyone in the community, everyone in the state knows the law. So we will see as we learn more to the extent that individuals have been involved and what I mean. We only know the allegations, but nothing has been proven, and everybody should have their day in court where all the facts come out, and the defense attorneys would have an opportunity to really examine the evidence against the clients. And once we have trials or things like that, we would know the extent of what happened. But we are kind of like just waiting and kind of seeing. We're encouraging everybody, obviously, not to speculate, and just to get information from the right sources, because we've noticed that a lot of social media is kind of going crazy with this, and sometimes speaking without really knowledge of the facts.
Right. What are they looking at in terms of if they were to be found guilty? What sort of a sentence are they looking at? What are the repercussions?
I mean, obviously, some of the allegations are, could carry anywhere from 20 to 30 years of prison time if people are found guilty. But that is just what the statutes call for, what the law calls for. Obviously, everyone's case is going to be different. Everyone's, facts and circumstances would be different. There would be a discovery that would be starting right after this, after the indictments and first hearings. Negotiations would start for individuals and their prosecutors and their defense team. And but that some of the statutes really could carry long sentences.
I appreciate that. Amiin Harun, thank you for your expertise and your measured explanations on this, and perhaps foreshadowing some of the things that are to come. We will continue to stay in touch with you to see where these and other issues relating Somalis in Minneapolis go. Thank you so much for your time today.
Well, thank you for having me.